Hey there, Riverman fans. I'm Jason Ruff, and welcome to the Dry Dock Podcast. Hey there, Riverman fans, and welcome back to another edition of the Dry Dock Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Ruff. This is the podcast where we break down and talk about the 40th Riverman season that was the championship season. Talk to some Riverman greats, past and present, about what they're doing here this summer now that the ship is in dry dock, so to speak. Our next guest is one of the more intriguing broadcasters in Peoria Riverman history. Though he did not get a full season in with the Rivermen, he was here for 2 years, including the COVID year, was a big part in keeping fan engagement at an all-time level during the COVID crisis. He has since moved on to do some outstanding work in the ECHL with the Cincinnati Cyclones. My predecessor, you know him, I know him, we all love him, Andrew Mossbrooks. Andrew, great to see you, my friend, and how's things treating you up in Cincy?
Yeah, great to see you as well, Jason, and thank you for having me. Along with the great introduction, I listened, as I told you before we started, your Dry Dock podcast with Alan Fearing, and I know that he was very complimentary of your intro. I don't know if I one-upped him there, but it sure as heck felt like it. So awesome and great to hear from you, and I'd be remiss if I didn't congratulate you and the entire Riverman organization. I was very jealous of you to be with the team that I was. As you mentioned, we never had a chance to see what that playoff road would have looked like. We knew we were in when COVID hit us, but I'm so happy for you and Jean-Guy, Trudell, Bart Rogers, David Minian, Alec Hageman especially, and all the great guys there, and men and women, Katie Pogeman as well. So congratulations on winning a championship and bringing a title back to the River City.
I appreciate it, Andrew. But let's talk briefly about that team, because that was the team where, if my memory serves, the Rivermen and it was Fayetteville were like neck and neck for the league regular season title, getting ready to go into the playoffs. And then all of a sudden COVID hit and shut everything down. A lot of folks that I've talked to here, and you and I have talked, off camera as well, that team really had a shot to not only go the distance, but also win it. Obviously they win it in their 40th season this past year. But I really think that team, at least from my perspective, could have had a chance to get it done early, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And we were, to bring everybody back to that moment, because it's something you just never forget. We were in Fayetteville, like we were physically on campus. We were getting ready to play the Marksmen. We had just got done doing not a morning skate, but a practice on Thursday. And we had a 3-3 set with Fayetteville. Going into that weekend, we were tied with them. I believe, us radio guys, we tend to have every stat. I believe there were 10 games left for both the Rivermen and the Marksmen. We both were tied in points. I think based on tiebreaker, Fayetteville may have been in first place at the time, but regardless, we had yet to play them, and those were the only 3 games we were going to play them during the regular season. So at that point, both Fayetteville and Peoria had secured a playoff spot, and this was a huge series, because I thought and I think Guy and a lot of the guys felt this way, this was kind of the measuring stick. So you would know, certainly if you come out of that series 0-3, you may not feel great about yourself, but if you win majority or all of those 3 games, yeah, I really thought we had a shot. And look, the history of the Rivermen in the SPHL, every year they've had a shot. They've been in the playoffs every year. They made it to the President's Cup final 3 years in a row, a couple of seasons back, and obviously winning it this year, and of all seasons, the 40th, which is so great to do. But yeah, I really don't know, Ruffer. I think we have the team. I would have loved to see it through. I also, though, if you talk to Bart, and I don't know if Bart remembers this, I also didn't want to go on that bus ride. I'm sorry. And one, it's 15 hours, which thank God we don't have to do that in the ECHL right now. And I love the SP. I love everything about the Rivermen. They're the reason why I'm here. But we were hearing rumblings of this, like the days leading up to this trip. Like you were starting to hear like, oh, there's people are getting infected with this. And then I will never forget that bus ride for the reason that, and forgive me if I'm going long here. No
worries.
I talk at exhaustion, as we all do. But I will never forget being on that bus. We got done doing an ESPN radio show for the Rivermen that Wednesday. And then at midnight, we got on the bus at Carver Arena, left. And as you know, you have the satellite. So we're watching TV, it's usually NHL Network. I forget if we turned it or if this came up on NHL Network as well, but I'm sitting there. Near the front of the bus is Alec Hageman, Jordan Ernst, Jordan Carvalho. Alec Bear may have been up front too. Guy was still awake. Cam, Max Finley, who's now with the South Carolina Stingrays, our athletic trainer at the time. And on TV, we see Rudy Gobert touching these microphones and of the reporters and then testing positive for COVID. And this is about 2 hours into this 15-hour bus ride. And I remember, I think it was Hags. And I looked at him and I was like, what are we doing here? Like, this is not going to go well. And surely enough, another 12, 13 hours pass. We do our morning we do our practice, our Thursday practice in Fayetteville at their arena. And by the time we got onto the ice, the NHL paused its season. By the time we got off the ice, the AHL paused its season. And we were just, back at our hotel a little bit later, waiting for that last domino to fall. And unfortunately enough, it did.
So, I do think it's unfortunate that the Riverman season was canceled, mostly because, like you said, you didn't get a chance to see how that team would have played that whole season out. Even if, I think, had that Fayetteville series not gone in your way, we had Eric Levine on a couple of weeks ago, and he said something fascinating to me. He said, on their last quote unquote down south series, when they had the Knoxville, Huntsville, they lost all 3 games and no one felt good about, their playoff chances moving forward. Cause those are the 2 teams. In fact, I have people in Huntsville telling me that, Peoria and Huntsville Havoc, this is going to be the preview of the championship game for the President's Cup. And the Rivermen did not play well in those games. So then all of a sudden you're wondering, oh my goodness, is this going to be the year? But Eric Levine said something interesting. He said, had it not been for that weekend to kind of shake the guys up a little bit and get them in the mindset, like, look, if you want to win a championship, you got to play at a playoff level, not a regular season level. And sure enough, look what happened in the playoffs. Rivermen all go all the way to the finals, eventually win it. Knoxville and Huntsville get knocked out in the first and second rounds, respectively, by Roanoke.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad you brought them up. I mean, I know this is a Riverman podcast, but, to your point, I mean, look at the Rail Yard Dogs. I was trying to keep an eye on the SP as much as I could this year. And if I remember, 3 teams, the 3 teams that didn't make it were Macon, Birmingham, and Vermilion County.
Correct.
But I think Roanoke was like dead to right with them as well for quite a while. And then they started in the second half of the season kind of surging forward. And, eventually not only did they make it to the playoffs, they pull another Cinderella story off like they did against Peoria in 2019 when they were not actually the 8th seed, but the Rivermen got to pick their opponent in the first round. This is before the days of you and me. This is the Brad Kupiak era of Riverman hockey. But, the Rivermen picked their first round opponent and Roanoke swept them, and Peoria won not the President's Cup, but they were the William Coffey Trophy?
I believe so. Yeah.
First place in the SPHL. So yeah, it's crazy. And one quick story I'll share with the Rail Yard Dogs is the last game of my tenure with Peoria was a shootout win against Roanoke at home in Carver Arena. It was a Sunday afternoon. Obviously at the time did not think it was my last game I'd call for them. Thought I had at least 10 more and then another season. But Brian Gardner, who was the voice of the Rail Yard Dogs at the time, I went over to him across from the arena and, shook his hand. They were getting ready to bust out of there. And I don't know where they were going next, but at the time it was, the playoffs started today. Riverman, Peoria was first. Roanoke was 8th, or we were 2, they were 7th. Like, this was a playoff preview of a first round matchup. And I said, well, I know it's not confirmed for you guys yet, but look forward to seeing you in the playoffs. And he said, yeah, I'll see you next month here, right? I was like, for sure. And we shook hands. And that was March 8th. And the next time I saw Brian was a couple of weeks prior to this recording at the ECHL meetings in Vegas. And just, it was cool. It was really neat. We just, got a chance to embrace, and I was so happy to see him again. And, I would have never thought that was the next time I would have saw him. I would have never thought we'd each be wearing polos with 2 different emblems than we were accustomed to at that time. Of course, I was able to dig this out of the closet that I have here. I still keep some of my Riverman swag.
Glad you could. You look good in it.
Thank you. Yes, you look great in it. Yeah, I have that same shirt. I'm glad we did not match because I was worried about that. I figured you were going to get the gray and the blue polo like I did. So this is actually, I have a selfie to prove it. One I'm not going to share because it's weird. And I don't like taking selfies, but this is the shirt I wore for my first day, the day after Labor Day, Tuesday, whatever it would have been in September. This was the shirt I wore for my first day to work with the Rivermen.
There you go. This was, I believe, no, this was not my first shirt I wore my first day. This was the shirt I wore my third day.
All right, nice.
But it's funny you mentioned that. Oh, next time we'll see you in the playoffs will be Roanoke and Peoria. And of course, the next time they do see each other in the playoffs is Roanoke and Peoria for the President's Cup. So I guess we can thank you for setting up that finals matchup. I know you mentioned you were able to keep tabs on the Rivermen on the playoff. What was your reaction when Peoria was able to win that cup in 4 games?
Well, so I know what it was. I'll say it. I hope I'm not going to get in trouble for it. The reason why is because game 4 for Peoria. So I was texting some of the guys. I was going to try and make it down. If Roanoke, because I know Roanoke won game 3 at Berglund Center. If they won game 4, we were going to be off for, like, the Cyclones were going to be off for game 5. So I was like, all right, I'll drive. It's like 4.5 hours. I'll drive. I want to be there for this. And it's a shame I wasn't. Obviously, I'm happy you guys won when you did. Again, my reaction, like, maybe shouldn't have been what it was because I was super excited. The reason I say that it shouldn't have been that way is I found out you guys won about 15 minutes into the Cyclones bus ride back from our game 7 loss at our season ending in Toledo. So, and we had a great group here. I mean, you know, all kidding aside, like that was one of the most entertaining playoff series I've ever watched, let alone been able to broadcast with Cincinnati and Toledo. And that's a great rivalry. And the Rivermen had played both those teams back in the old ECHL era. But yeah, I was keeping up with it. I think Peoria was were they down in the 3rd period of that game?
Yes, they were. They were down 2-1. And this is after Alec Bear in the 2nd period on a 5-on-3, no less, had a wide open net right at the side and he shot it low.
Yeah. Cause
go upstairs. And I remember seeing that moment. I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, he buries that 9 times out of 10. If he can't bury that, I was starting to get a little nervous after that point.
Well, in our game was at one point, it was a 1-goal game in game 7. So I was like, well, you know, I'll take a look at the score bug like in intermission, but I really can't pay attention to the game. And then we got eliminated, unfortunately. And I think, you know, you're kind of trying to process so much there. You know, we stayed at the rink for a little while and then, you know, finally it's like, all right, you know, last bus ride of the season, let's just get at it, I guess. And then I got on the bus, you know, we're all kind of deflated and, you know, click Twitter because whatever, everybody's on their phone. I just saw the President's Cup champions graphic and I thought, wow. And I called Bart and my head coach was right in front of me, Jason Payne, who's an awesome guy. And thank goodness he's just so understanding of the hockey world and how close knit the relationships are because I probably called Bart mid beer bash. But I was like, man, I'm so happy for you guys. And, you know, I sent Guy a message and I sent Hags a message and I think Jordan Ernst I had reached out to and, you know, Eric Levy, I reached out to him. I mean, it honestly, for me, it really did take the sting away because I knew how much that city wanted a championship. And I think back to when, you know, you're not wearing it right now, but the new Riverman logo that was brought in prior to you coming on and came in just before I left. And when we were making that, I was involved in so many meetings with KP and Bart and Cohen and our designer. And it was like, how do we encapsulate 40 years? Like this means so much to people. So to have it and then to see a championship, I think back to, you know, Norm Ulrich, the late great Norm Ulrich, when you hear, you know, him say Peoria wins the Kelly Cup. And like, you know, seriously, like all those things flew to me just by seeing that tweet. Cause I was like, wow, like that city waited 22 years and, you know, I'm super happy for them. And as I mentioned, yourself and the team and the staff. And I know from being there how hard everybody works and to see them rewarded is really special.
It is special. No matter what the level it is special. Andrew, the Cyclones had a good season this year, a fantastic playoff series. Unfortunately got eliminated in the first round, like you said. And first year head coach Jason Payne. But what was the experience from your perspective covering that team all season and working with Coach Payne this year in Cincinnati?
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool. Like it's so people ask me a lot, like to compare like Peoria and Cincy, and like honestly, they're so different for so many different reasons. Like one, we're sitting next to skyscrapers in an MLB stadium, all due respect to the Peoria Chiefs, Great American Ballpark's just a little cooler. But in the same sense, like Peoria is such a traditional hockey market. And I loved that because we could talk about hockey and everybody, just that's what they dove in on. And you have a guy like Cleve who I should have texted Cleve the other day because I had Culver's on the road in St. Louis and I thought of him because he loves Culver's burgers. So total side note, but anyway, that city just like they care about hockey so much. And in Cincinnati they do, but we're more of a casual market. So we market things very differently. But to your point, Jason Payne, like he's a great guy. It was a crazy year. A month into this job, I have Emily Kaplan at ESPN calling me to break the story about Jason, obviously a trailblazing hire, being the only current head coach of color in North American professional hockey. So that was pretty big. And I certainly felt the weight of the, as away from broadcasting, there's the PR media relations side of our job. And I really felt the weight of that to try and make sure I was doing it justice. But what's great about him, and as you know this about Guy, like they're good people. That's what you need more than anything. I remember when I went into that job in Peoria, somebody, I can't remember who it was, told me Guy is the most intense person you will ever meet in your life. And I thought, okay, like, I better be ready. And Guy has that intensity to him, and he does have a lot of fire, and he absolutely loathes losing and is in love with winning. But like, he's a giant teddy bear. Like, he's a great guy, and that's the same thing with Painter. Like, I walked in one night after a loss and there was a dented table. He loves to win and hates to lose, but he'll never, just like Guy, you're never disrespected. You're never treated poorly. They care about who you are. You're right. We had a good season. We made the playoffs right at the end, and we gave it to the team that was the runner-up for the Kelly Cup. So it was a heck of a run. I'm really excited for this coming season, and excited to work with Jason again. But I miss Jean-Guy Trudel a ton, and I say hi to him whenever I can. And his laugh is so infectious.
Oh yeah.
He's a great guy, and obviously I appreciate you asking about Cincinnati. It's a great spot here, but I don't want any of that to take away from Peoria because I went here, but if I would have been in Peoria another year, I certainly would not have been mad, and especially given the end result, I think I would have been elated. So
certainly so. Well, speaking of Peoria, how do you think working here for the Peoria Rivermen in this hockey market, in this organization that really prides itself on holding itself to the highest standard of this league, how did working here for the Rivermen set you up to success in the ECHL and hopefully potentially further on up the ladder here?
Yeah, I certainly hope so. Peoria, like it'll always hold a special place in my heart. It's weird, as you introduced me, I worked for the team for, I think it came out to like 19 or 20 months. But I was only there for 6. So it was a really interesting time, but it was so important for me because, like you, I had been in the NAHL as well with a team that ended up being defunct, the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Knights. And I like to set goals for myself. I'm a very goal-oriented person. Bart would attest to this because when I got out of college, I said I wanted a job in hockey. I got my job in hockey with the NAHL. A year after that, I said I wanted to get into pro hockey. And what's funny is I'll try not to give you the super long story, but I had reached out to Brad Kupiak a year earlier to just have him listen to my demo because I was graduating and wanted to get my tape in front of as many people as I could. Well, out of that, Brad and I became friends on Facebook. And after the NAHL season ended, a couple months into the off season, I was just continuing to try and see if the next step was available. I wanted to get into pro hockey. And I had been a runner-up for an ECHL job at that time. And Brad, I saw the post from the PJ Star that Brad had shared that Cleve had wrote. He was leaving. And what's funny about that is I messaged Brad and I was like, hey, man, hope everything's well. And look, I hope this doesn't come off the wrong way. Broadcasters know this is always kind of a touchy subject. When you see somebody leaving, you kind of do want to know, like, is there going to be anything there for me? And I reached out and Brad was like, hey, looks like they're going to hire somebody locally. Sorry. And I was like, yeah, no problem. Best of luck in what you're doing. I waited like 1 or 2 more days and I reached out again and I was like, hey, do you think it would like hurt just to try? I know you said you're going to hire local, but like, do you think it would hurt for me to just message your boss, this Bart guy? And he's like, nah, go ahead. And it went from that to 10 days later, moving to Peoria. So happy I did it. To your question more so about, what did it do for me? The first day when I wore this shirt, I went into Bart's office, sat there for about an hour, and Bart told me, he's like, hey kid, or as you know, hey Bull. He's like, hey Bull, look, you got a lot of talent. We're happy to have you here. If you, but look, you don't know anybody here. Your girl isn't here. If you give me 110%, and you bust her, you know what? And he said this all in a nice way, by the way. I don't know if I'm making Bart militant. He's absolutely not.
No, you're not. Don't worry.
But he said to me, he's like, I know you're hungry. I see it. You give me your all. I promise 1-2 years tops, you'll be at the next level. And he was right. And it gave me an opportunity there to make mistakes. He allowed me to steer the paddle wheel, if you will. I was, kind of tasked with sort of giving our socials a facelift and doing all these creative things away from broadcasting. And it was a lot of long hours. It was a lot of days where you're like, why? Like, I mean, there were times where, I know, especially toward the tail end of that season, we started having more 3-and-3s. It was common for me to work, 13 days in a row and have 1 day off and then go another 13. And it's like, there's definitely days where you probably know this. And I think every broadcaster does. If they say they don't, they're lying, where you sit there and you're like, man, I am burnt out. Like I'm down to the wick and, I need I need to breathe. But what kept me going there is like, Bart is so passionate. Katie, Cohen, Guy, everybody wants to work so hard. So for me, like, you kind of feed off that energy in that office. I mean, now I work with 20 plus people in a front office, but I remember what it was like to have the corner desk on the one kind of hallway in Carver Arena. And then, go into the lunchroom you're sitting in and mingle with our staff of 4 or 5 or 6, including interns. And, we all did grunt work. And Bart's the boss and he was doing grunt work too. So I think when you see that, and that's true leadership from the top down, it helps you out. And so Bart just, he gave me the keys. As I said, he let me steer the paddle wheel. And if I say this over and over here as well, like if it were not for Bart first taking a chance on me, not hiring a local kid like he initially planned, helping me out with housing, I'd be remiss if I, didn't say that I mentioned I worked there for nearly 2 seasons. He paid me through the pandemic, which he did not have to do, which CSH International did not have to do. They did everything they could to allow me to blossom, and I would not be in Cincinnati and I would not be in the ECHL if it weren't for my stop in Peoria.
Andrew, your story is one of many, but it illustrates and highlights why this is one of the greatest organizations in the entire Southern Professional Hockey League, if not the greatest organization. I know some other folks would say otherwise, but why good people really make good Rivermen. It's why that saying is on the door of the locker room right now as we speak. Andrew, last question before we let you go. I know you're a very busy man up in Cincy. What are your off-season plans? Obviously outside, getting things ready for next season. I know you're a diehard Phillies fan. Is there any chance they can get a wild card spot here, or are we giving up on the Phillies this year?
No, I never give up. I never gave up during like the 90 loss seasons. I was like, they're going to find a way to turn it around. Yeah, it's a problem. It really is. But no, I was just actually at Busch Stadium a couple weeks ago to see 2 of their games there. I'm very fortunate here, much like you guys. We have a lot of flexibility. There's certainly a lot of work. We're starting to ramp up now with player signings, and I'm trying to kind of figure out how I want to rewrite the wheel, which some people don't believe in doing. I like to have a new look every season. So when it comes to media relations, game notes, things like that, we're starting to kind of hit those benchmarks. But in terms of my personal time, I have a lot of free time. I'm lucky now. My girlfriend, who was my girlfriend in Peoria, even though she was 12 hours away. She was there, and she was not there. We did long distance then. Now we luckily live together. We have a great time. I travel around a lot. I do go to a lot of Phillies games when I can. We actually just booked a weekend in Pittsburgh, and I'm hoping in September, if the weeks leading up to the season aren't too hectic, I'm hoping I can get out to Wrigley Field and see the Phils play the Cubs there. I do think they have a shot at the wild card, man. It's a shame they have some injuries right now, but I like watch almost every game.
Well, when you do come up, try to get that game in Wrigley Field. Let me know. We'll go up to Chicago, get some pizza or a Chicago style hot dog, whatever you'd like.
Love it.
Love it. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck to you, Cincinnati, the Phillies, and everything else. We look forward to seeing all the great things you'll continue to do moving forward. Thanks so much. Enjoy the off season, my friend.
Hey, thank you, Jason. And again, just one last congratulations to you and the staff there on lifting that President's Cup. I wish you guys a ton of good times here. Hopefully, because of that long season, you're getting a chance to relax a little bit more. But I can't wait. I know the schedule just got released, and I think Quad City will be where it starts. So I'm looking forward to following this upcoming 22-23 Riverman season, and hopefully a repeat as President's Cup champions.